Hey guys, this is Mr. Mulatto with another book review. So, one of you all out there in YouTube comment land, Wolf Larson 71, suggested I review this book. And to be honest, I thought it would be a good idea because I like Coleman Hughes, but it was nowhere near the top of my list. But I got to it by accident. Boy, am I glad I did. So, let's do it. So, like I said, the book is The End of Race Politics by Coleman Hughes. And I guess it's time to go. All right. So back in 2019, late night television host Stephen Colbert, and this is one of Coleman's examples, made fun of Bernie Sanders for suggesting people should choose candidates not by the color of their skin, but by their abilities and what they stand for. Now, how simple and exactly true is that? Why on earth would a primetime television host quip that, yes, like Dr. King, I have a dream where this diverse nation can come together and be led by an old white guy. This is the norm today. Holding up the idea of colorblindness, the same idea that our civil rights leaders marched for, is pointed to as naive, excuse me, and sometimes racist. So, by accident, I came upon this book in audio form. I was getting ready to do some work on my deck and needed something to listen to while I work. My Spotify actually recommended this book. It kind of popped up, and I didn't realize that I can do audiobooks on Spotify. Now, I thought, what the hell? Instead of 90s hip hop today, I'll chill out with Coleman Hughes. Now, the title and subtitle, The End of Race Politics, Arguments for a Colorblind America, in itself is controversial, especially for the proponents of the new anti-racism. So Coleman said that he Googled colorblindness, and the first 9 links were articles about how the concept is wrong-headed and even racist. So Coleman provides numerous examples of popular authors and public figures misrepresenting the concept of colorblindness, but the question is, why would they do that? And he says it's because the new anti-racism, neo-racism, requires race as a lever for cultural, political, and economic power. And in fact, Coleman correctly points out that colorblindness is essential for identifying racism. Without colorblindness, equal treatment amongst the races, you wouldn't even be able to spot racism, because colorblindness is the benchmark for what racism is. Anything that's not colorblind is racism. So by default, if you reject that we should treat all people of all races equally, you have to treat some races as superior to others. Neo-racism, or simply the rejection of colorblindness, requires a hierarchy of race. He says neo-racism is a type of racial supremacy. So, what exactly is the colorblind principle? Coleman provides this definition. We should treat people without regard to race, both in our public policy and in our private lives. Now, often people balk at this by stating, we all see color. You can't not see race. So, very soberly, again, he explains that colorblind is an expression much like being warm-hearted. Nobody thinks warm-hearted people have an average heart temperature higher than anyone else. They believe them to be especially kind. So, similarly, colorblindness is not to be literally blind to color or race, but to act as if it is not consequential to a person's character. And I really love this explanation, especially when you imagine the opposite of that. So what's the opposite of colorblind? We must treat people as if their color is essential to their character. So that presupposes that color is a relevant determining factor in a person's character. You would then have to state exactly what it is that relationship is. Is black good for character? Is white good for character? Or are they both bad for character? Is it a spectrum based on melanin, or exactly what is the relationship between color and character? It just quickly becomes stupid, just like dismissing colorblindness. So you will very quickly now hear how complicated this social construct is and how ingrained in our societies and psyches it is. But like Thomas Sowell said, People who pride themselves on their complexity and deride others for being simplistic should realize that the truth is often not very complicated. What gets complex is evading the truth. They don't actually believe what they're saying anyways, I don't think, for the most part. If anti-racists actually believed that race was a social construct, they would be less likely to police the behavior of people based on their race. Believing race is a social construct should lead people to dismiss it as something or to reduce it in importance, not concretize it. Now, to be fair and nice, it is most likely that people who adopted the ideas of people like Ibram Kendi and Robin DiAngelo are not realizing what they are really adopting. And when I say adopt, I mean that literally. The vast majority of ideas lumbering around in our heads are ideas that we have adopted or absorbed. Almost nobody who has quoted these people or posted a black square on their Instagram actually has put much thought into these ideas. Almost nobody who proudly proclaimed themselves to be one of these new versions of anti-racists even read their books. I've talked to some of them specifically, and they admit not reading it. So I dare say this, or anyone who did or now does read their writings and then reads Coleman Hughes, they will be embarrassed for ever putting themselves in that camp and for anyone who holds anti-racist ideas. Now, what Coleman does is take the new anti-racist ideas seriously and interrogate them based on their own words. Doing that, they very quickly devolve into simplistic stupidity that he rightly refers to as neo-racism. His book uses sound logic, reviewing the words of our civil rights leaders, the court cases, and proposed amendments for political and legal equality, and shows us exactly what they thought by what they said. Now, I read Ibram Kendi, and he did nothing of the sort. He did little more than tell a story of possible racism he experienced, and then form an entire worldview from that. Ibram provides no history or legal references, no deep discussion of the words our civil rights leaders used, any sharp discussion of the evolution of that movement and its ideas. The stark difference between Ibram and Coleman is obvious for anyone with eyes to see. Coleman is professional, Ibram is not. Coleman then goes through the history of the original anti-racist movements, and it's easy to see how much they differ in content from anything the new anti-racists or neo-racists say. New anti-racism is simply neo-racism that relies on incredibly shallow anti-human thinking, racial stereotypes, and racial supremacy with no path towards equality. I couldn't recommend this book more. The audio version read by the author, Coleman, is smooth, incredibly easy to listen to, and it really provides you a firm footing upon which to stand with those original principles of racial equality that got us here in the first place. That's how I felt after reading it. So in the future, there will be no way that I ever question or feel embarrassed holding these original and empirically effective ideas of colorblindness and racial equality, as opposed to racial equity. So in the end, well done, Coleman. And I hope you guys get out there and read this book. If you haven't done so already, I appreciate it if you hit subscribe and or like. It's really good for my channel. And if you've read the book or you do in the future, come back and let me know what you think in the comments. I appreciate it. And thanks for watching. Have a great day.